Well, at Brooklyn Book Doctor, we are trying again, number two with Lisa Fitzpatrick. She is an executive editor who has done all manner of things book related. Has also worked with books in a film and TV context, which is how we're going to talk today about those kinds of things. And she's just coming on now to the live. I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation whenever you're joining us live or in the recording. I'm really excited to have this conversation, actually. I'm going to learn a lot, too. Lisa has done so many interesting things, including on working on the Avatar franchise with James Cameron, Men in Black films, just scrolling through what she's done. Here she is, going live with Lisa. Are you here? Let's see.
Oh my gosh.
Ah! Yay!
Finally.
Yes.
So sorry.
Don't worry. That was the worst part. The worst part is over.
Great.
It can be forgiving, so we're good. We're here.
Oh,
Yay, you're here.
Yay.
And we both have our books behind us.
Yes.
How many of those are titles that you've authored or edited?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. A few.
Yes, all mixed in there.
How about you?
Yeah, some of them,
Yeah.
like there's a
Yeah.
couple right there. I don't know how
Yeah.
many you can see, but yeah.
Yeah,
Books
they
are the
blend all
thing.
together.
They blend all together.
Yeah. So fun. It's such a wonderful career path to have chosen. It's really just lots of wonderful experiences, wonderful people to meet, and it's always something
Totally.
new.
I'm so excited to talk to you today because I have
I'm
so many
excited to talk to
questions
you too.
for you.
Oh, yeah, great. Well, I'm happy to be here.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're Lisa Fitzpatrick. You are currently in upstate New York, but you've spent a long time in LA, in the LA world.
Yeah.
And and on your bio, you say you're an executive editor. So before we get into the connection between books and film or books and TV, tell us what an executive editor is.
Yeah. I describe that because I've done so many different things. It's kind of hard to, my circuitous career path has led me into lots of different kinds of challenges, all within the larger scope of publishing in general. Oddly started with audio way before it was cool or even, known by many outside of the, pool of folks that I was working with. So I say executive because I've worn so many different hats that I pretty much know every aspect, including managing other editors or teams of people, depending on a project. As you and likely many of our listeners know, if you're working in the creative arts in any form, every project has its own warp and woof. Sometimes it's 2 people, sometimes it's 100. It just depends.
Yes. So executive editor really covers it all.
Yeah, I haven't ever worked in mainstream publishing in New York. I've certainly sold books to folks and worked on, just recently finished a project actually that's to be published by Penguin Random House as the developmental editor, not as the writer. But on the West Coast, where I've spent most of my adult life and my career, for example, I worked at Palace Press Publishing, and at that time I started out as the general manager of one of his imprints when he was first starting getting in publishing. I was his sort of first publishing hire, and we grew that over the course of 7 years. And we had 3 imprints and 30 titles a season, and I was running that as on the editorial side, doing acquisitions, but it was a small press, so we also do proofreading as needed and all the layout and image editing, and if I was hiring a writer, I would manage that, and the copy editing and the proofreading and interfacing with the design team. When I left there,
you wore a lot of hats.
Yeah. And then I've also packaged books. I've packaged a title for Abrams' books on Clint Eastwood, his directorial biography. So that was a soup to nuts project.
Yeah. Deep inside the industry. So
yes,
you were on the West Coast for a number of years, and you did work a lot in this relationship between film and books, or TV and books. And it's something that, of course, people are very curious about.
Yes.
Even self-help books could become could be translated into these other media. So, but there's
Yes.
a lot of question of how does that happen? So can you talk about a title that you worked on and how it became a film, or how the film became a book? I know you have a lot to choose from, so.
Yeah. Well, there's kind of two separate entities. There is what I spent most of my time doing, which was working in what is called in the industry licensed publishing. And that means you're a subdivision of the consumer products department of any one of the large studios. That would be Paramount, Universal, Warner Brothers, Sony, Disney, and one at that time was independently was Fox, which is now owned by Disney, plus HBO and the other, outlets that might potentially get interested, or there might be an appetite for a printed version of any media that they're making for the big screen. So there's that, where we are downstream from the originating event, which is the making of a feature film. And then there is the other side of it, which I have not worked in, which is to develop a work and sell it into the industry. I could tell you about it from observing it, but it's not something I participated in.
So maybe
that helps you.
Okay, yeah, that's really super helpful distinction. I think so. Let's do it this way. Maybe because I know you have some experience agenting, and you've witnessed the process of book into other media. So maybe let's do that first as a rundown of generally it goes like this, and then let's talk about your experience, what you call as the downstream of the main media, meaning like there's a film or a big TV project, and then you come in as someone who expands the franchise by creating a book out of it.
Yeah. Yes. So if you are looking to sell your work, if you're looking to, you mean in like a novel or a book form? Is that what you're looking at?
Yeah. So yeah, let's first do book form of some kind that might be optioned.
Yeah. So it's, if you have connections or can develop relationships directly with producers, they're really the folks within the industry that you want to gain access to, because ultimately within the whole scheme of directors and everyone else, with any of the executives in the studios, if you're looking to get access to the creative team of a production company, that would be, you want to speak with the producer. They are the ones who make the decisions, who kind of the gatekeeper. So that if you're looking to go directly, it's usually better if you go through traditional channels, with an agent, and have them pitch for you. But it's, if you're looking to make a book, your first touchdown is to secure success in the book publishing industry. And then that would, as hard as that can be and challenging as that can be, but it's not likely that if you write a book, if it hasn't been published, with the feature film, or even for television, they're not as likely to really take that pitch, really invest energy and attention in that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so they want publishers buy-in first to see like this is a published book and someone approved of it already, and then your agent, as an author, your agent will pitch a media agent, and then that agent would take it to producers. Is that how it goes? Yeah.
Yeah, it would be a secondary right, to speak in industry.
Yes, yes.
I don't know. Can't think of an instance where a novelist would write directly and it would get, optioned for film, and then that happened, and then the book published later. Maybe you were aware of an instance.
No, I would say that would be a rare. That would have to be an extraordinary circumstance.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there are, folks like Stephen King who have kind of jumped the shark, and they're now writing for television. But
they're Stephen King.
It's very rare. Yeah, exactly. Or Michael Lewis, I think, gave it a try, for example. But it's not to say that you need to be Stephen King or Michael Lewis to give it a go. But if you really want to, sell your work for film and television, then you should write for film or television. There are many, many gateways to developing a career directly rather than indirectly, if that makes sense.
That totally makes sense. So, okay, book writers, write your book, publish your book, and then look into film and
Yeah.
TV. That would
Or
be
have your agent do it.
or have your agent do it. Yeah, have your agent do it. Okay, cool. So I'm sure that there would be a lot of questions, but let's go to like, do I have to get an agent at an agency that's connected to film, like CAA, for example? But you're saying that it could be a secondary thing, like a different agent could come in and do that for you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what your experience is, but I think the lines are blurring more than they used to
Yeah,
be.
that's what
Yeah.
I would imagine. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so a lot more, when I first started working, gosh, to say that it has been many years now, I guess, since I first started working in feature film and television, but there was much more formal distinctions. And in the generation before that, they were like very separate worlds. And, you either worked in television or you worked in film. It's just really different now, especially on the writer's side. A lot of feature film writers are now writing for television, and, there's a lot more creative energy, actually. It's a bit of a bonanza in a sense for television writing, much more than it ever used to be. It's really a wonderful time to start a career in that direction if that were your interest.
Yes, exactly. We've seen tons of good content. In fact, it seems like the studios are really hungry for great content because they're always producing things.
You never know.
You never know. Even your self-help book could be made into a series.
It's happened more than once, for sure. Definitely.
So, okay, great. Thanks for that. So let's talk about your experience, which is the other way around. So there's a great big film. You worked on Avatar, The Godfather, and the Clint Eastwood book, just to name a few. And you were hired by I don't know all the insider speak for the studios, and you said it as the consumer
products departments. Yeah. That was where I started. But if you pick a project and I describe its route to you, they'd all be different.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
But that's where I started. So when I was working for this art book publisher in San Rafael, California, I was a senior editor and acquisitions editor there for about 8 years. And I started out when they had one press, and the founder and I and other people grew these other two imprints. One of them covered feature film and television. Lucasfilm happens to be in the Bay Area, and their offices were just a few miles from ours. And their art director in their publishing department became our art director, and relationships were formed, and we ended up doing a series of books for Lucasfilm. And out of that, really beautiful limited editions about Star Wars. And out of that, we started approaching the studios, the consumer products departments in the studios, and pitched them to do the same for them. And that's how it happened. So we ended up, we worked with every studio really on various projects over the years, and it's still going. They're still doing quite a lot of that. But the Avatar project in particular I started out as the acquisitions editor working it was a pitch, really. I mean, a lot of these things, in case anyone's curious how to do follow a similar, don't follow what I did. It was I don't know, there's nothing traditional about what I did, but it's a lot of pitching. Probably not unlike when you're doing freelance writing. It's the same concept. It's just a different audience, and it's a different target, and it's framed in a different way. But so, you would just pitch the studio on an idea, and sometimes they say yes. Always was very shocked when they did that, especially the first time. Incredibly surprised that they even took our call. But it turned into some things. And the Avatar project, I actually left that company, but I maintained my relationships with Fox and with James Cameron's production company, and they invited me to be the editor on the first Avatar. I'm assuming this is what you want to talk about. Is this what you're interested in hearing?
Yes. I want to ask you. sorry for my curiosity, but I want to ask
No, it's
you.
fine.
So you were working in a publisher, and then the publisher grew, and you started pitching film media houses, saying, "Hey, let us make your big blockbuster film into
Yeah.
a book." Is that what happened?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
And then
Repeatedly.
sometimes they would go, "Great, we love it," and some people would say, like,
Yes.
"No, we don't need it." And in one case, it was the Avatar film,
Yeah.
and with James Cameron's production crew, and they said yes. Is that right?
Yes. They say, yeah, well, I had started the conversation when I was working as an acquisitions editor. In 2008, I went on my own and have been on my own since as a freelancer and as running my own studio, Fitzpatrick Studio, called. And they invited me to continue on that project when it actually came about. Sometimes these things can take years. I mean, it's sometimes slower than books. You can start a conversation and then 5 years later, you get a call.
Yeah.
Not that long, but sometimes longer. So in this case, I got invited to run the project, and Abrams Books was going to publish it. So I was kind of their editor on the ground in Los Angeles, working with the production studios, going through the archives, working with the studio. Essentially, just in terms of the big picture, it's the kind of work I was doing is involved in making the films. There's a lot of stakeholders, and you have to keep that in mind every step of the way. So in that sense, you're one little bit on a big, process, and it all needs to get funneled and approved through those things. So, so I was the person on the ground assisting with all that. Is this helpful?
Yes, totally.
Yeah.
Interesting. So in a way, as well as being an editor, you're also somewhat of a producer of the book from the book end
Yes,
things.
and a brand manager, because you're protecting the brand as they are creating it and articulating it. So it's kind of in that window before everyone knows whether the movie's going to work. You're always working backwards from the date the movie's going to be released as well. Everyone from the studio, from the producers, everyone, we're all working backwards from that release date.
So
It's really,
that sounds like such a mind bender. You have to create a book from a movie that's not yet out.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, your book ideally hits when the movie hits.
Wow.
But there's the parts where you need. So there's a lot of interviews. All my books, Men in Black, were most recently, for example, I did 30 interviews or so. But I was focusing on the archive. I was the first 3 films, and I had a writing partner who was focused on the 4th. They were shooting in London, and she got to go to London. I didn't get to go to that one, but I was having fun in the Sony archives. It was really such a blast, that movie series. But with Avatar. So let's see what else to tell you that's relevant. So I was going to be, it's kind of like being a book producer. I mean, it's hard. I sit between 2 worlds, between 2 industries. So the language or the descriptions, neither one nor the other fully grasp what it is that I do, except for the few of us who actually do this work, because you're kind of in between. So, but in film speak, I was a book producer. To Abrams Books, I was delivering, all the assets and a kind of a book map, and they had an in-house designer who executed the layout. And then I would review it, and I would go back to the studios for approval, that kind of thing. So in that case, they invited me midstream to write it as well.
I was going to ask. That was my next question.
Yeah.
Like, were you the producer, the editor, and the writer?
When they came to me about that, I was so shocked. And I was kind of having an out of body experience the whole time I was working on it.
So you were the brand manager, producer, editor, writer, and the person managing content quality for the publisher on the ground in LA. Like, that's a lot of things to do.
And image selection as well. So
wow.
So reviewing all the photo archives, but also if there's other assets like original sketches. Jim, for
Yeah.
example, Mr. Cameron, had a lot of his own original sketches that went in. We had to get those scanned, and everything that
That's
goes into making
fascinating.
an art book. So
Right,
yeah,
right. Wow, that's so fascinating. So
and
you've
the
done
different
several.
phases of the
You've done
Go
several of
ahead.
these. Is there one that's a favorite of yours?
I'd have to say my own, the Clint Eastwood book package was just such a rare treat. I mean, I got to spend a lot of time in the Warner Brothers film archives, publicity archives, the still photos. I remember there was a shoebox from Bird that probably had never been opened since the movie closed. And that back then it was pre-digital, and there were, sheets of slides, and I just, I pulled them apart and they were totally stuck together, and then just looking at them all, and then told it, it tells a story. The publicity department captures all the activity on a film. And at that time that they were shooting, it wasn't something that the studios had come to understand could be repurposed for commercial interests in a way that for additional uses. And there wasn't a kind of an appetite for the behind the scenes material that we were now unearthing for publication. All that's changed even more. Even in the last 5 to 10 years, it's changed even more, I think.
Can you just
Viewers and
define quickly what a book packager is? I know this is getting pretty deep into the publishing world, but for people who don't know what a packager is.
Yeah, it's a person who knows a lot about all the mechanics of making a book. So rather than selling an idea to a publisher, you sell them the idea and you deliver finished files for them so they don't do any of the work in house. You have your own designer, you do all your own image research, everything. You do everything except the sales and distribution and marketing. So you bring the finished book in digital form to them to print and sell, and put their name on it, so it becomes
Something
their book.
something that they're interested in having on one of their lists.
If you can convince them, yes, that is something they want to buy. On an idea, in that case, my writer had pitched me on the idea, and we went to Clint Eastwood's production company, Rob Lorenz, his producer, and he brought it to Clint, and Clint greenlit it. He gave us the permission to go and sell the concept. So I ran around New York and got a buyer, and then with that good faith commitment, then we went and made it.
Great. Sounds like you
Sense?
love research. Yep, you love research and being in the archives and seeing where the story is and putting it together.
Yeah, but feature film is a small portion of the content that I've ever done. I started out in long form original spoken word teaching tapes, and as we've discussed before, working with yoga and meditation and personal growth, I think it was called at the time. All those topics, which are near and dear to my heart, and and I continue to do that. These days, I'm doing a lot of developmental editing and manuscript evaluation. I love that part of partnering with someone who's got an idea and helping shape things. It's really always such a thrill.
So anyone who's listening to this now or in the recording, just ears perk up. Lisa's the one. If you have a book idea to develop, she's waiting for you.
Or you too.
Me too.
Yes.
Although things are so busy over here that I tend to be deflecting more than I'm accepting these days. But I did want to ask you, what have you worked on recently that you loved? What's been a joy to work on, especially in the past couple of years?
Really, one of the projects I just finished with a man named Rob Barnett. It's called Next Job, Best Job. And he is a media headhunter now, but he's been a media executive. He was one of the originating producer, content developers from day one at MTV and then VH1. And then he was the head of CBS Radio for a long time and head of marketing at Audible, and most recently. So he's been in music and entertainment for 40 years, and he's turned his attention to helping others find work in all fields, but also with inside media. And we started talking a couple of years ago to kind of memorialize everything, all of his insights and knowledge from hiring people over those 40 years and managing people over those 40 years, which he's now doing for his business, into a book. And so we helped write the long form nonfiction book proposal, which I don't know if your listeners know or not, but you really kind of have to. That's what you take to pitch to a book publisher, and you really have to have thought through the entire structure of the book and have 2 sample chapters. A lot of the heavy lifting creatively needs to go into that proposal. You don't have to have written the whole book, but you really need to have had a fully fleshed out idea, and it can help, particularly as you probably know, in prescriptive nonfiction, that it's helpful to have an editing partner to help shape and prune and hone and all of those things, so that you have a really solid proposal to take either through your agent or directly to a publisher. So we did that, and that first round we didn't get a buyer, and he was working with his agent Rick Richter at Avitas, and then Rick called us and he said, "Hey, this was after COVID. I think I want to, revisit this idea." So we did, and we redid the proposal a bit, and then it sold, and then Rob kept me on to help develop the final manuscript. So we worked on that through January, and it was just such a pleasure to partner with him, because he's just a very skilled communicator on all of his stories, and it's just really a joy.
That sounds
sometimes
wonderful.
It's more challenging if someone is in an earlier aspect of their career. They want to be in publishing, but they're still learning how to write. It's a different kind of partnership. But in his case, I was running to keep up.
That's fun when you feel like, woo, I've got a live one here.
Yeah. So that was a good one. And then a book that came out last summer was the Men in Black book, which I partnered on with another writer. And I really enjoy doing all the interviews, and talking to the artists whose craft it is to make these movies. There was such a really kind of a perfect storm of talents that came together for that first film in the mid-90s. So listening to their stories and helping shape and articulate what it was for them at that time was really a pleasure.
It sounds great. Yes, I run a program called Book Proposal Academy. And so people are in that process you described of mapping out their book and really figuring out what the book is. And there always comes a moment in Book Proposal Academy when people realize that they're mapping the entire creative life of the book, and it feels very daunting because you're caught between, well, the book doesn't exist yet, so it's hard to describe, but then you're also, but I kind of understand what the book is, so how do I talk, so going back and forth between that it doesn't exist yet, but I have to talk about it place can be challenging, and guidance can be essential to get through that. And then, of course, like you say, the writing of the manuscript too, when you're in partnership doing it, you have an audience, you have a skilled editor with you, you have a pair of eyes to look at things, you have someone to bounce ideas off of, and that can make things go much faster. I also like that you brought up the fact that you developed this really professional proposal, and then it didn't get a home. It didn't go somewhere.
Did not.
Even though he did everything right. He was a skilled professional. He created a proposal. He had an agent. I'm sure everything was by the book, and then it didn't happen.
Yeah,
but
lots of really warm, fuzzy feedback. Really the kindest no's you could possibly imagine.
I wanna underscore that, because so many of my clients are headed in that direction, and I want to just underscore that if you don't sell your book right out of the gate, that doesn't mean that it's dead. So,
not at all.
And this is a perfect case in point.
Yes, timing. It was really the timing, and it was just the right topic. The second time around,
exactly.
Yeah. If you're passionate about something, the world doesn't always align to your timing necessarily, so you have to keep
That's
going.
right. That's right.
Just keep pushing, it's always a chance to refine your thinking. If you so it's never lost on us. We learned a lot in that first process about that particular topic and how to adjust and get taking the feedback in from the various editors who
You're always going to learn something through those conversations.
Yeah, you must see that a lot, I'm sure.
Yes, I do. Yeah, and I think what I see a lot is a disheartened response to, like, oh, the proposal is more difficult than I thought it was going to be, or oh, the pitching process is taking longer than I want it to, or I'm getting all no's. They're great no's, but I'm getting all no's, and and we have to ride these waves, right? Because there's no definitive, none of them are definitively like, you should not be doing this. It's all just the waves of the process. Like you're talking about, your career is kind of zigzag, but somehow it works and it makes sense, and it fit who you are in the moment that you were doing it. So book publishing is just that way.
100%.
Great.
Yes. Yeah. You always need to not take it personally. I mean,
Exactly.
It's hard to do.
Yes.
I mean, it's very hard.
It's very hard.
Very challenging. But
talk about personal development.
You just keep the faith and keep going.
That's right. Well, this has been a wonderful conversation, Lisa. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, no, I've enjoyed speaking with you as well.
I want to let people know where they can. Oh yeah, I think it's fascinating. I'm sure it's going to bring up lots of questions for people too. And then I want to tell people where to find you. Obviously, you're on Instagram at Lisa Fitz Books. People can find you there. And then I'm looking for your. And then if they want to email you, you're Lisa at lisafitzpatrick.com.
Yes. Yep. They can find.
And you're also on LinkedIn
as well.
Yeah. So LinkedIn, email, Instagram. This is where you are. And Lisa does, as you've heard, many things, and she has a lot of insight and skill to offer. So thanks, Lisa. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Yeah, you too. Have a good evening.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
Bye.